Real estate agents, there are really only three ways to market yourself on social media to grow your business using content. And we're going to talk about those three and which one is more beneficial for you based off your circumstances. If you don't know me, my name is Jarvis. I run Jarvis Media Consolidated. We've generated some pretty great results over the past 5 years for real estate agents. And that's where this information and this data has come from my own personal experience working with agents, over 200 plus agents across the country. So let's jump into the three different ways you can market yourself on social media. There really is only three different ways, and they each have pros and cons, which is why we need to talk about it so that you know what's best for you, so you don't spend all this time and effort and get poor results because it doesn't exactly line up to your skill set as well as a different strategy. So first and foremost, what we need to understand about how to market yourself as a real estate agent is that we need to understand that first and foremost, we need to get seen, right? The goal here, obviously, as we talk about, is that we have a funnel, just like how every version of marketing has a funnel. And at the top here, we need to be known, we need to be liked, and then we need to be trusted. Obviously, we've all heard this before. People can't work with you if they don't know you. They won't work with you if they don't like you. And there's no incentive for them to work with you if they don't trust you. So we need to make sure we accomplish all of that in any other funnel too. But with social media, obviously, there are specifics to how this is going to work. So first and foremost, we need to be seen first, which means that people are actually viewing our content. Now, a lot of agents get tripped up here because they make a lot of content that doesn't get any visibility whatsoever. And the problem there is that you're understanding that you need to post, but like if you constantly just only get in front of the people who are like really, really close to you and like your grandmother or your mom or your sister or whatever, they're going to view your content all the time because they like you as a person, right? It's not because your content is any good. And so a lot of people who do actually post on social media, they might even do it frequently enough, but they don't have the content that's actually going to get them viewed. And so we need to understand that like if we don't show up on their feed, then we can't do anything else. We can't be liked or trusted by people who don't know we exist. So that's why first and foremost, understanding how to show up is the primary goal here. So there are really only three ways to do this. Number one, we can make organic content on socials, right? Now, the idea here is that if we're going to make organic, it has to go, I shouldn't say viral. I will here, but ultimately, when I say viral, the definition of viral in this case is just that you're getting in front of a high percentage of people, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to get in front of 1 million. This could be like a post that gets in front of 1,000 people or 10,000 people. I'm gonna say viral is going to be a disproportionate amount of people versus how many people you're getting in front of currently, right? If you're posting on social media right now and you're doing it somewhat consistently and you're not getting enough views to necessitate becoming a bit getting business out of it, getting more clients, then ultimately viral means a substantial increase, likely a 10x increase on the amount of views of your content, right? So just keep that in mind. You don't have to get millions of views, but it just have to be a good amount more. If you're getting on average 100 or 200, we're going to shoot for 1,000 or 2,000, right? So that's the idea here. So the pros here to organic content is that you can build a strong following because they're enjoying your content, right? So you can build a really good following because they just simply enjoy your content. They want to keep coming back because every time your video comes up, they really enjoy it, which is perfect, right? But here's the con here, is that it takes, and we don't talk about this enough, it takes a lot of time. But here's the thing, it takes a lot of time to make content that is going to be competitive purely organically on the platform. And like that's going to take multiple hours, multiple days, a week. And that's if you're efficient. Like likely, if you're going to be really making great content, it's going to take on average at least an hour a day, right? So if you're taking at least an hour a day to make a good piece of content, and then on top of that, it's also going to take time for that to really grow and manifest into your platform or your following basically, or just your audience, which doesn't have to be people follow you, but people who see your content frequently. but it's going to take time to grow that into your audience becoming clients. So, you spend all this time making content. And so if you really enjoy making content and you're at a stage where you're not making enough that your time is so valuable that it's a waste of your time or it's a bad allocation of your time, then it might make a lot of sense to basically spend a lot of time on this because it can be a great way to grow. A lot of people do this. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's going to take a lot of time to make that individual content on a day by day basis, but then also it's going to take a lot of time just for that content to consistently grow, right? To grow over and over and over again. So organic content is great because you can really build a strong, loyal following, but that's only if you're okay with it taking a lot of time to make that and a lot of time for that to grow, even if once you're consistently posting. Like I'm talking about like a year or two, like multiple years of being very consistent, posting every day with really good content. Nothing wrong with that, but those are the honest pros and cons. You can't just throw up a really quick video that has no forethought, that has no strategy behind it, and expect to have great results. You might be able to get better results if you wait longer, but ideally here, we're thinking about this as an agent, how to use this to grow your actual brand. And so that's where this is going to be important because we can't think maybe forever long term. We need to start seeing results here, at least in the medium term, right? But so that brings us to option number 2. So you can make hyper niche content. So hyper niche content, basically this is no longer having to make viral content, no longer having to make content that actually has to get in front of a sizable amount of people, right? So a good example of like a piece of like organic content that's trying to go viral would be, you make a video where you are, doing some kind of like trend or doing some kind of, challenge or something that is going to have some level of virality to it. That is basically the idea there behind getting the organic content to go to go viral, right? You need to tap into things that people are already finding interesting. So this would be like, some crazy funny thing or some crazy surprising thing or shocking thing. There's a lot of ways to fabricate this and basically make something that is going to encourage people to watch more so than something else. Like again, you could have going to like testing like really like hot wings or driving to a bunch of different places to try the best coffee shop that's local, a bunch of different versions of that. And that's not even that niche, like, or really, really like viral. If you were crazy trying to go viral, it would be like a challenge, like trying like the cinnamon challenge or doing some kind of like a prank on somebody or something that's going to really encourage people to watch the whole video, right? That's an idea of like some crazy, like high value content there. So that brings us to 2, which is how you can make super hyper niche content. So hyper niche content would be, hey, we're really just going to talk about like the nitty gritty important things about real estate, right? And this is going to be helpful because when you do get in front of your audience, the big pro here is that when you do get viewed, it's directly connected to your target avatar. When you're making viral content, you're just making content that's trying to appeal more to the masses. And that ultimately is going to mean you're going to get in front of a lot of viewers who only a very small amount of them are going to be potential clients for you, right? And so that can be tricky. You can get a lot of views, but basically each view is less valuable. Now, if you make hyper niche content, this is like a talking head video, or it could be something like walking through a property, but this is going to be saying, hey, if you're looking to buy in the San Bernardino market right now, here is one of the most important things that you need to understand about this housing market. And it's a little bit more boring, but it's boring to everybody other than people who need that information. So you're not going to get nearly as many views. This is where, you can still might get like 100 to 500 views depending on a lot of different factors and what topic you're talking about, but they're going to have a much higher percentage of people who are actually likely to work with you. I'll just say higher. higher percentage of likely buyers and sellers. So this is, great because again, you're just getting a lot more bang for your buck in terms of the quality of views, but you're getting a lot fewer views overall, just because less people are going to find this interesting, which means you're getting in front of less folks, you're getting your brand known by less people. But again, they're higher, more qualified, because the people who will watch that kind of a video about what's really important for a buyer right now to know, those folks are going to actually care more, right? You're also going to get in front of your circle of influence more heavily here, which is fun because again, a lot of those people are the most likely ones to refer you and do other things like that, and be clients that have you worked with in the past who are going to work with you again, all of that good stuff. So that's perfectly fine. Now, number three. Oh, actually, let me talk about the con here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. So the con here is that it is very difficult to cut through the noise. So you have to keep in mind that people are only going to see so many different pieces of content every time they're on social media, right? And your content has a time frame, right? Like there is, except for like long form YouTube content, there is an amount of time that like your short videos are going to basically be thrown to people's feeds, right? After a few days, it's going to die off. So it can be really difficult to cut through all of that noise because other people like Mr. Beast or Dwayne The Rock Johnson or Leonardo DiCaprio or like, whatever, like big stars and big names and big brands, those are going to be constantly coming up on people's feeds because it's more viral content, right? That's again the advantage of that more viral content. It just has more mass appeal. So you're going to get fed that kind of content more often than a really niche, very particular, more education, more medicine like content that's very good for you, but again, it's just less appealing than the sugar of what the viral content does. And so it's difficult to cut through the noise and to get enough viewership to make a difference quickly. So that makes it a little bit tricky because, again, it can take still a long time to see better results there just because you're getting in front of so few people. But at least every person you're getting in front of is highly likely to, to, again, be your target avatar, be somebody who is looking for the value that you are providing in that video. So that brings us to number three. You make content and strategically boost it. Now, I used to always say that whenever I recommend this strategy. This is the strategy we use a lot for like a lot of like our real estate clients across the country. I used to avoid saying the word boost because generally when people boost posts, they go into like they post on like Instagram, they go into the Instagram app and they just put some money behind it, right? And like Instagram solicits you to do that. They say, hey, like boost this post and you'll get more views, and you will. I don't like saying that because that is ultimately a little bit different from how I recommend doing it. So when you're creating a post, I recommend going into the back end of Meta Ads, which is a more complex tool, and strategically targeting folks who make sense for your content or make sense who are your likely avatar here, because those are again the people who we know are going to have the best results here. So I don't like saying the word boost, but Meta ultimately changed the description. So when you go into the back end and you build those ads, now they call it boosting a post still. So I'm like, all right, I guess it's technically called boosting, but there's just keep in mind there's two very different ways to do this. I don't recommend going in your app and just paying blindly for you to get more views. I want you to have a strategy because ultimately that is going to determine the best results that you get here. So this has obviously the benefits of both worlds, right? The pros here are that you can make niche content that is more targeted to the right audience, and at the same time, you can also make sure you get the placement, the distribution on the platforms. Let's say distribution is built in. So your targeting, your content is far more ingrained. It's far more specific to helping the people who are at that stage of their journey where they need a real estate agent's help and they need a real estate agent's expertise. And on top of that, you can built in cut through the noise because that is the cost of the ad spend, right? And so what's cool here is that you can start to get that 1,000, to 2,000. And if you're doing this well, and this is what we see with a lot of clients we have, like, 5,000 to 10,000 views per video. And you can make sure it's targeted. Let's say this is like your town right here. You can target a radius to make sure that all those views are coming from like a 15, or let's say 20-mile radius of your market, unless you want to talk about like targeting people who are, moving into your city or town or whatever, and then that's obviously you want to target like probably nationwide, or targeting a few specific cities. So that is the benefit there, is that you can get the distribution here. You can actually target based off the interests of people who have looked at Zillow recently, who have looked at moving companies, or U-Hauls recently, or whatever else it might be, based off of like who or what your target demographic is looking for. You can find people based off of these interests, and you can serve them content that shows up on their feed that is designed to help them and should be appealing to them, because these are folks who are somewhat interested, somewhat farther down the line of the buying or selling journey. And so I really like that because it's got both benefits there. Now the cons is obviously that you have ad spend, right? So you have to pay for that. But let me explain why that actually might not be an issue for some people watching this. And then the other one is expertise, right? Again, if you're just, boosting expertise, sorry, hard to spell when I'm talking. But if you're just somebody who's boosting blindly and you don't really have any kind of a strategy, then you're gonna be losing money and losing the time and effort it takes to build this and to do everything else and to actually run the ads and whatnot. So you don't want to just do this blindly. You have to know what you're doing and understand how to tweak things to get better results here. And so ultimately, that comes from making sure that you have the expertise there and you know what you're doing. So when you're doing this, here's how ad spend could be something that's actually not really an issue, right? Let's say you're an agent, you make $100,000 a year, right? Okay, so that means your time is worth, if my math is correct, it's somewhere close here, around $48 per hour, right? Now, this is based off of a 40-hour work week. I did this math a long time ago, so hopefully that's still the same case. So I think it should be around $48 per hour of your time. So that means your hours, your working hours, have a value to them. So here's what's crazy. If you're making organic content, right? If I could spell, if you're making organic social media content, and you're trying to make organic content that is, let's say, viral, right? You're going with the first strategy here, right? You're saying, hey, I'm going to make content that is viral, and I'm going to try and build a stronger following, even though a lot of those people aren't going to be like necessarily the great viewers for me, right? Well, if you do organic, then it might take you 1 to 2 hours per day to properly execute that strategy, okay? Well, then now we're saying, okay, that's going to cost us, 1 to 2 hours a day. It's going to cost us $100 to $200 worth of our time, because our time is worth $48 an hour. So that is going to be, or sorry, my math is bad. So that's going to be $50 to $100 per day, right? Cool. And so then obviously there's the time of how long it takes to build up that audience. I'm not going to calculate that because that would be, we don't know for sure what that would cost, but just as an idea here. So it's 1 to 2 hours per day. And so that ends up being, again, $50 to $100 per day. If you assume around, running that for the whole month, that's going to be, $1,500 to $3,000 per month on your marketing, right? So cool, that can be great, and you can get great results there, right? Now, let's say we're doing like the niche organic content. Well, we're still going to be working probably closer to like maybe, because you still need to have a high volume of content here, maybe closer to like 30 hours, right? So maybe closer to like probably 30 minutes per day. because the content doesn't take as long because it's just you and your expertise. You don't have to do all this flashy stuff and make the piece of content something that's going to compete really well, right? We're just trying to provide as much value to this niche audience as possible. Well, okay, so then that's going to only take around $24 per hour, or sorry, $24 per day. And so, 24 times 30, that'd be 240. That'd be around $750 per month. But again, we're going to be talking about getting somewhere around the lines of 200 or like 100 to maybe 500 views. Let's say 250 or let's say 300 to kind of be safe. Let's say we're getting 300 videos, 300 views from a more targeted audience per month. So that's going to be 300 times, it's going to be about 9,000 views per month. Right? And that's more targeted. The reason we're not really calculating that here is because we don't really know exactly. When it's viral, we just don't know how many of those people are actually engaged and likely to become buyers or sellers that work with us. So, but this one is a little different because we know we're targeting people who are more interested in our content and more interested in buying or selling stuff, so we can attribute more value to those views. That's why I'm doing that. So that's great. Now, if we do this hybrid system, where we're actually running the social media content and then we're targeting the audience to make sure we get that distribution and it's still niche and we're still getting in front of the people who actually are going to be interested in this. We're just guaranteeing that we're showing up higher on their feed and not getting drowned out by all the content creators and entertainers out there. Then suddenly that becomes a lot different. So now we're actually getting somewhere along the lines of 5,000. I'm gonna average 5,000 average views is what we've really seen. Per post, really. So ultimately that ends up being around 50,000, around 150,000 views in a lot of cases per month. And again, depends on a lot of different things, how many people are in your market, all that kind of stuff, how big your radius is you're targeting. But we've definitely seen views like this. We've seen, actually, I'll be more conservative. We've definitely seen pretty much everybody we've run this with get 50,000 views per month from a more targeted audience. And we're running ad spend that usually costs about $300 to $500 per month. And you're still saving all of the time. So it's going to be about 30 minutes per day still on average for your content. If you're doing this, with us, it's actually quicker. It's about 1 hour per month of time to make the content. Then you actually end up having around $750 per month plus like the 500. We'll say that's about $1,250. 500 plus the 750, so we'll say that's $1,250 per month. But we're getting 50,000 views and they're all hyper targeted, and you're saving all that time that you can reinvest into your business elsewhere. That only makes sense if you're making a certain amount of money, obviously. If you're making a lot less than that, it probably makes more sense to stick to viral organic or niche organic. But regardless, if you're making more than that, hybrid model makes a lot of sense just because the math plays out in your favor and the ad spend is less valuable than your time. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys on social media.